going on? Blossom is back, and welcome back to another episode of Top Drives. Today I'm going to be going through the top 3 best and the top 3 worst rares in the game per RQ. Now I want to say thank you so much for all the positive feedback on my super rare video, and because of that I am back, and today we're going to be judging the rares where, as you know, I'm telling you my top 3 best and top 3 worst. Now let me know if you agree with me or not. If you disagree or agree, let me know down in the comments below, and also let me know what rarity you want me to do next, whether it be epic or legendary, or of course my favorite, ultra rare, or even uncommon. So let me know down in the comments below which rarity you want to see next. Without further ado, let's get into it. I'm gonna tell you my top 3 best and top 3 worst RQs in the game, or I guess cars per RQ in the game. So starting off with RQ30, we are going to kick off with the Opel Insignia Country Tourer. This is like the little brother to the RQ43 Insignia, which coincidentally was also in the series in the super rare category. Much like its older brother, this car is amazing in the same aspects. It combines a low 0 to 60 with a really good handling for its RQ. It's also medium and it's also standard. It's a fantastic car. Nothing like this in terms of its competition. The only downside to this is that it's pretty heavy, so just don't use it on a slalom in the rain and you will be good to go. It's a great city streets rain car, twisty circuit rain car, twisty road rain car. The next two that I want to talk about, the first one is the Renault 5 GT Turbo. It's a fantastic car. It's like the performance tire version of the Opel Insignia that we just covered. It is good in the same traits, it's just that it's in the performance tire category. Once again, this one is also lightweight, unlike the Insignia. Great handling, low 0 to 60, medium ground clearance. The last one that I want to talk about in terms of the great RQ30s is indeed the Dodge Coronet. Let's say that you have made the perfect hand and you only have 30 RQ left to play with. That means you can't use the 1969 Charger, which is 36. You can't even use the Plymouth GTX, which is 31. Well, guess what? You got the Dodge Coronet Super B. There is no car that gets even close to, or closest in, there's no car in RQ30 that gets within 0.1 second 260 as fast as the Dodge Coronet Super B. I think in second place is like the Maya, which is like 6 seconds. There you go. But yeah, the Coronet is the best in its class for RQ30 for the drag. So we talked about the best. Now let's talk about the worst in RQ30s. And the first one is coincidentally the Ford Maya. The Ford Maya just has nothing going for it. You know, outside of a pretty nice picture, it's just a very underwhelming car. The 0 to 60 isn't as good as the Coronet. The handling, well, let's be honest, it's one of the worst in terms of its RQ. It has like common handling, if you ask me, especially since it has performance tires. So this isn't a very good car. It's going to lose to the Coronet and everything in the RQ30s. Now, the next two that I want to talk about is the Lancia Delta. How far the Delta name has fallen. We have gone from the beautiful Integrales of the 80s and 90s to this. What is that? I know it says Delta in the car plate, but the D doesn't even look like a D. It just looks like a C, and they just flipped it the other way around. It's not a good car. Once again, when it comes to standard tire cars, you want it to at least rare standard tire cars, you want it at least to have more than 70 handling, and the Lancia Delta just misses the mark, making it one of the worst. And the last one that is also on the worst list, I guess, I want to call it the shit list. I might call it the shit list, is the Vauxhall Astra GTE. Once again, complete opposite of the Renault 5. Mediocre 0 to 60, mediocre handling. It's just one of the worst medium ground clearance performance tire cars for the RQ30 range. So that being said, let's move on to RQ31, and 31 is pretty easy for the top 3. Actually, it's a top 4 because one is a combination of 2. The first one is the Caterham M7 160. No introduction here. It's the best rare for the wet slalom. Next one is actually a duo. I like to call it the twin sisters. I like to call it the Manta sisters. Both of these cars are absolutely amazing. One is slightly better in handling and one is slightly better in 0 to 60, but they're both absolutely fantastic. They're both light cars. They both have low 0 to 60s and they both have really good handling. Both very reliable RQ31s. I call them the Manta sisters. Manta 400, you're gonna be called Martha, and Opel Manta 400 Rally, let's call you Madeline. Madeline and Martha, the Manta sisters. Those two are absolutely amazing. They're also Blossom choice. If you don't have them in your garage, what are you doing? Go get them. And the last one for the one of the top 3, or I guess in this case 4 RQ31s, it's the Plymouth GTX. It's just a better version of the Coronet. So if you have one more RQ to play with, you don't need to play that Coronet card anymore. You can play the Plymouth GTX. So let's talk about the bottom three for RQ31. The first one is indeed a tomato. It's the D Tomato Deville. It's just, you know, very underwhelming. It doesn't have handling. It doesn't have good handling. It doesn't have a low 0 to 60. The top speed isn't very high. The MRA isn't very good. It's just a very underwhelming car. It's also very heavy, almost 2 tons. So really, there isn't much going on with the D Tomato Deval. But next up that I want to talk about is indeed the Subaru Legacy. Now this Subaru is so bad that even Leo, remember Leo? Even Leo hates this. I remember he told me that he didn't like this car, or at least he said that he didn't like it in the game. It was very useless in the game. And the fact of the matter is, the Subaru Legacy is just worse than the Subaru Leone. When it comes to 4-wheel drive standard tire cars, you want to pair it with competent handling. That's what the Leone has, but the Legacy doesn't. So although the Legacy has lower 0 to 60, it's not really what you're looking for, especially when you're going to be deploying these cars on a twisty, wet circuit, or a twisty road, or a wet twisty road, or a wet slalom. In fact, the Leone is actually a really good one. It's an honorable mention for RQ31 if you ask me. So the last one that I want to talk about for bad RQ31s is the Lamborghini Urraco P250. Now this thing is good for nothing. This thing is like your distant cousin that went to Harvard, but he decided 2 years into his sophomore year that he was going to drop out of Harvard, but not discover Microsoft or anything. No, he dropped out of Harvard so he could go into, I don't know, the mountains and become a monk, a spiritual monk where he can push rocks with his testicles. And then 2 years of pushing rocks with his testicles, he realized, hey, what am I doing with my life? And he comes back and he goes back to Harvard and he's like, yo, can you take me back in? I found out that I was wasting my life. And then Harvard's just like, no, you left us. Why would we accept you back? And now all you can do is push rocks with your testicles. That's what the Urraco is. It has nothing going for it. I feel like this car is lost in its statistics. 0 to 60, not good enough. Handling, not good enough for anything. Top speed, not good enough for anything. Ground clearance, not good enough for anything with the stats that it has. So the Urraco P250 is a bit of a shame. We're gonna see more of it, of the Urraco, when we move into RQ32. So let's talk about RQ32. So for RQ32, my top 3 would be the DS3 convertible. This is a fantastic lightweight standard tire car that handles very well. And then the next 2 are also medium ground clearance. The Chevrolet Beretta GTZ, which is a fantastic city streets medium car, one of the best in its RQ, or actually the best in its RQ. And then we have the Fiat Grande Punto, which is the best city street small car in its RQ. Now, the Grande Punto and the Beretta, they both share a similar DNA. They both have the same handling. They're both lightweight, they both have low 0 to 60, and they both have kind of top speed. Now, here are the pros and cons of each one. The Beretta, pretty obvious, right? Lower 0 to 60. The Grande Punto, however, has ABS, and it's light. It's lighter than the Beretta. But at the end of the day, both of them are really good, and they both punch above their weight. So I had to add them both. Now, for the worst RQ32s. The first one is the Jag. I'm sorry I can't say that as well as Jeremy Clarkson. My voice just isn't low enough. Imagine saying Jag with if you have a high-pitched voice. The Jag. The Jag. The Jag XJ12. It has the style icon tag that literally is all that it has. Much like the Lamborghini Urraco, it's a car that's just mediocre in everything, and that's a trend that you're going to see with a lot of the bottom cars in HRQ. The next one is, haha, guess what? Another Urraco. It's the Lamborghini Urraco P300. This thing is kind of like the older brother of your distant cousin who went off into the mountains to pull rocks with his testicles. This one is pulling, oh god, how many more analogies that I can think of? This guy's trying to pull the entire mountain with his testicles. That's what. This thing is incredibly sad. When you look at it, just compare the Urraco side by side with the Lamborghini Urama GTS. It's a 1 second different 260, and they're both low. How on earth are both of these cars the same RQ when they both have similar top speed, similar handling, such a vast difference in 0 to 60, and not even a difference in ground clearance? I don't know. The Urraco is really bad. It might have better MRA, but it really doesn't matter, because if you don't have a top speed of at least 170, your MRA is not gonna matter, buddy, because you're still gonna lose the quarter and the half and the 1 mile if you are 1 second behind to that 60. And then next up, especially especially when it comes to a competition as close as this. And then the last one, which is one of the worst for RQ32, is the Alfa Romeo 33. Much like the Lamborghinis and all the other cars that I've set out before, the Alfa Romeo 33 is just worse, a little worse than kind of its next door neighbor. Just look at the Alfa Sud, right? It's a little slower than the Alfa Sud. It handles a little worse than the Alfa Sud. Yes, it has like 4 miles per hour better in top speed, but who cares? The only thing the 33 has going for it is that there's a plane in the picture, and that's kind of cool, I guess. Brownie points. Moving on to RQ33 now. The first amazing RQ33 is the Land Rover Defender 90. It's just kind of like my second choice if I can't use the Ford Escort Rally spec, which is obviously 6 RQ more expensive, 4-wheel drive off-road tire cars, and it's quite light, to be honest, because when it comes to off-road tire 4-wheel drive SUVs, they're usually around the 2-ton range, and the fact that it's under 2 tons, especially the fact that it's a Land Rover, is actually quite of an advantage. It's quite a plus. So the Defender 90 is one of the best. It's in 33. The next two are going to be the Rover 216, right here, great handling, medium ground clearance, and then last but not least, it is the ever so trusty and reliable BMW Z4S Drive 18. This car has won me carbon fibers. When I mean that, it means that I've used it in the hand where I had to win a carbon fiber in a prelim or qualifiers or those, carbon fiber events that come out on Monday or Sunday, depending on where you are in the world. But the Z4S Drive, absolutely fantastic. Pretty lightweight car, amazing handling, convertible, niche, low 0 to 60. It's a fantastic little machine. I just love it. I just love this car. This is Blossom Choice. You need to get this if you don't have it. Now, let's talk about the worst 3 RQ33s. The first one is also a BMW, is the BMW 2002 Turbo. Once again, look at that handling, 66. If you see a car of 66 handling, you would think that it's a dragster, but this isn't a dragster. It has a low top speed and a very mediocre 0 to 60, so this is a very depressing car. Next up is the Volkswagen. The Volkswagen Polo, I think this is the first Volkswagen on the list for the bad cars. This one right here, once again, much like the Alfa Romeo 33, they're just so many cars that are better than this. It just handles a little worse. The 0 to 60 is not good enough, so that's why it's on the list. They're just better cars. And then last but not least, we have a trio. We have a streak. It is the Lamborghini Espada. This car has stats as bad as its picture, and that is saying a lot because that's a really bad picture. Now, let's move on to RQ34. So RQ34, starting us off with the best, is the Opel GT Concept. Once again, don't need to introduce this car. Everybody knows it's a lightweight slalom beast. Next up is the Renault Kadjar. This one might be a bit of a, I guess, hot take, a bit of a conversation starter. I think that this is a fantastic car. There are not a lot of all-surface tire cars that are this low in RQ that can hit 80 handling. I think this actually hits 81 handling. I haven't maxed. I should have this memorized, but I don't. Probably because it's French, but it's still a really good car. In fact, this car has helped me so much in the French campaign in the Yellowbird series. I wouldn't have gone the Yellowbird if it wasn't for the Renault Kadjar. Fantastic little machine. It's pretty lightweight for an all-surface tire SUV. Handles well. All-surface tires already. I feel like I'm repeating myself with the tires here. So, like I said, Renault Kadjar is a great car. Next one is going to be the Dodge Dart. Now, the Dodge Dart is a medium ground clearance standard tire car that has 84 handling and pretty low 0 to 60. It's a great, nice little all-rounder that is also relatively light, almost kind of just medium weight. Kind of, 1,500 is kind of like the medium. And now let's talk about the top 3 worst RQ34s. Once again, another correlation here. Bad picture, bad stats. Much like the Urako, man. I don't know. I mean, Hutch, come on. Choose a disability for your car. Don't have it have both bad picture and bad stats. If it's going to have bad stats, give it the courtesy of giving it a good picture. But I guess not, This thing is just, you can't even see the face. Maybe the Bentley Mulsanne Turbo is just so ashamed that it doesn't want to show its face because it knows that the stats are so bad. And you think that these stats are bad? Look at the weight. This thing has nothing going for it, okay? Now, the other two that are also really sad is the Cadillac Sedan DeVille. Now, once again, standard tire drag cars makes no sense. If there's a drag, it doesn't matter if it's dry or it's wet. You can use a performance tire drag car and it will probably still beat the standard tire on the drag anyway because it's a drag. It's a straight line. Just don't use a slick tire car. So, this is a standard tire drag car with a very low 0 to 60. So, really just a standard tire quarter mile car. And I have have this 996, but ever since the introduction of the AMC AMX, this car is just better in every way in what is a very niche requirement that you barely use already. So that just makes the Cadillac sedan even more useless, and now it's in the realm of being the worst RQ34s in the game. Now, the last one is the Mini Cooper SD. I have nothing to say about the Mini Cooper SD. I have notes for every car I have in this video, and for Mini Cooper SD, all I wrote down was performance medium shit. So there you go, performance medium shit. So let's move on to RQ35. I'm trying to pace myself. I got a timer on the side because I don't want this video to be too long, because nobody watches it when the video is too long. So top 3, Mazda MX-5. It's the best standard tire rare in the game. At least it wins majority of the tracks for standard tire cars. I know that the Caterham wins the slalom and the Honda HR-V wins the car park, but for the majority of the track sets, you can rely on the Mazda MX-5. Some other fantastic RQ35s is the GMC Denali. I almost said Yukon, but no. GMC Denali XT, and finally the Acura GSR from American Frontier. Now I have to specify American Frontier because now when we talk about the worst RQ35s, well, we are starting off with the Acura Integra GSR, not from American Frontier. Once again, it's just one of those situations where one car is just better than the other within the same RQ. If this was RQ34 or RQ33, fine. It wouldn't be that bad of a car, but the fact that it's the same RQ with the American Frontier version, and the American Frontier version has a higher top speed and handles better, and this is also low. I know, you look at the picture, you think it's medium, but no, it's low. If this was medium, then that would be a pretty good car, but it isn't. So it is a huge disappointment, and it's just not as good as, I guess, the American Frontier brother. I honestly don't even know what the difference. I guess it's just a year. I guess it's just a year that it's different, because the body looks exactly the same. And then the rest of the really bad RQ35s would be the Renault 25 V6. I have to be completely honest with you, when I was looking and making this list, I forgot that this car even existed. You never see this. I never see it in clubs, never see it in events, never needed it for the Yellowbird, never get it from packs. At least I never recognize it or even care about it if I get it from a pack. This car is just mediocre at its finest. And last but not least, it is the Golf VR6 right here. Once again, it's just a mediocre car. Now, I know what you're thinking, Blossom, your bias. You hate Volkswagen, and that's why you have a lot of Volkswagens on the shit list. No, it's just a really lucky coincidence on my part that the brand that I hate also just has really mediocre cars. These Volkswagens are just genuinely bad. They just don't handle well enough to be in the twisty sector, and their 0 to 60s just aren't low enough to be considered a drag car. That's what a lot of these Polos and Golfs are, and once again, the Golf is on the shit list. So let's move on to RQ36. Now, RQ36 is a little bit of like a golden era, because I have to say, out of all the RQs in the rarities, in the rarities, I would say that 36 and 39 are the best. There are so many fantastic RQ36 cars. In fact, I have a long list of honorable mentions for this one, but let's talk about the top 3. First things first, we gotta talk about the Dodge Charger RT, or what I like to call the God. This thing is fantastic. It has super low 0 to 60, it hits 3.9 sub 4 seconds, it has amazing MRA, and that's all you want in a quarter mile car. This is the best quarter mile and half mile rare. I love this car, and it's obviously my favorite car of all time. Just look at it. It's beautiful, and shout out to Hutch. Thank you for not giving this a bad picture. Out of every car in the game, I'm just happy you didn't give this one a bad picture. I love the Dodge Charger RT. Some other amazing RQ36s in my top 3 with the BMW i3S. It's the best standard tire medium ground clearance car. Next up is the Mazda BBR. It is like the second best twisty tire performance car for the rarity. It beats 37s, it beats 38s, it beats 35s and 36s, and all the other rarities besides 39 when we get to the Lotus. So MX-5 BBR Turbo, fantastic, super light, and I guess you can call it the rare super light, and it handles very well as well. Now, honorable mentions for RQ36 because there are a lot. The first one, Land Rover Defender 110, fantastic off-roader. Second one, Mercedes-Benz 190. It's a great all-rounder that loses by 50, that kind of has everything. It has a good blend of decent MRA, medium ground clearance, competent handling, and a low 0 to 60. Some other honorable mentions would be the Firebird, but this is a prize car, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. But obviously, this was the best dragster before the Charger. And then other ones would be, I think there are two more. No, there's three more. That shows how many amazing RQ36s there are. The Dodge Stealth, everybody knows this is an OG. The D Tomato Velalunga, fantastic, lightweight, handles well, low 0 to 60. And the last honorable mention is the Dodge Hornet. Like I said, it's a better version of the GMC Denali XT, but it isn't the best medium ground clearance rare. That will be in the RQ38 rank. So let's talk about the worst RQ36s. There are a lot of amazing RQ36s, but there are also some really bad ones, and we're going to start off with, once again, a Jag. It is the Jag XJS. Once again, very mediocre, bad 0 to 60, bad handling, standard tires, and it's not even, it is medium actually, but it's still not a very good car, because there are cars that are just much better than that. I mean, when you think about it, the RQ30 car, the first car that we ever talked about in the video, the Insignia, has better handling than this for 6 RQ less, and it's also medium. I know this is lower 0 to 60, but once again, when it comes to City Streets medium, 0 to 60 really isn't the main factor to look at. Some other really bad ones would be the Volkswagen Golfs. Basically, both of them, which would be the Golf GTI and the Volkswagen Golf, both of them are just very mediocre. Once again, the 0 to 60 just isn't good enough to be a drag, and the handling isn't good enough to be a twisty orientated car. So, unlike RQ36, RQ37 is a bit of a wasteland. 36 kind of has all the good cars, and 37 just has a lot of mediocrity, if you ask me. So let me go about the first top 3. So the top 3 would be the Ford Mondeo, medium ground clearance, 89 handling, pretty lightweight, and the 0 to 60 is quite competent, I guess. It's not the best, but it's not the best in terms of the entire rare collection, but in terms of just RQ37, the Mondeo ST200 gets the job done. Some other really good ones, I guess, for RQ37 would be the Dodge Caravan. This is kind of like the best car that loses by 50. It also bags out a lot of surprising wins in the rain, because it actually has a very low 0 to 60 for a standard tire car, but it doesn't have like very bad handling in relative terms to the low 0 to 60 that it has. I mean, it still hits, I think, like 80, so it's actually not that bad. And then last but not least is the Suzuki Ignis Sport. It's a lightweight, medium ground clearance car that handles very well, and it's actually one of the few rare cars in my top 3 that I actually don't have. I think every other rare that's been in my top 3 I have, and I have it max, but the Ignis Sport is one of those cars that just doesn't hit the mark for me, but it is a fantastic car nonetheless. Now, the worst 3 RQ37s, the first one is the Maserati Bi-Turbo S. Where is it? Is it even a Maserati? I think it is. I just can't find. There it is. Yep, Maserati Bi-Turbo S. Once again, very mediocre machine. Also, the Honda CR-V. Once again, man, like a Japanese SUV, like most Japanese SUVs in the game are known for handling very well, but for some reason, the Honda, like the Pilot in the last episode for the Super Rares, they don't want to follow the script. They don't handle very well, and you don't really, and that isn't really a drag 0 to 60 number as well. So this is just a really, really bad car all around. Last but not least is the Longchamp, or the Di Tommaso Longchamp, which is this one right here. Once again, just very mediocre. Now, let's move on to RQ38 before I wrap up the video. The top 3 that I have here is the Dodge Demon Roadster. It's basically like a better Mazda BBR. And, the BBR had a really good run, and it's still one of the best cars in the game, but the Demon Roadster is really giving the BBR some competition now. Really fantastic car, 92 handling, low 0 to 60, and it's also a lightweight beast. Not as light as the BBR though. Next up is the Vauxhall Chevette. I love the Vauxhall Chevette. It is indeed the best rare vanilla City Streets car, whether it be small or medium, so it's a very reliable machine. And last but not least, one of the best RQ38s in my opinion is the Chevrolet Malibu. 86 handling, standard tires, medium ground clearance. That's a really good combination. The 0 to 60 is also pretty low, which is something that not a lot of standard tire cars with 86 handling has, so that's a really good trait that the Malibu has. Some honorable mentions for RQ38, which are also some really good cars, would be the Lamborghini Yalpa, which is a fantastic all-rounder. Finally, Lambo, you got one right. the Chevrolet Code, and of course the Fiat 124 Spider. So now let's talk about the worst, the bottom three. The first one is the PT Cruiser. I feel like this is in the list just because of how ugly it is, but also it's not a very good rare. I mean, when you look at it, it's just worse, a slightly worse version of the Chrysler 200 convertible. They have the same handling, but the PT Cruiser has a worse 0 to 60. Sorry, something's in my eye right now, and I keep squinting because I'm trying to get it out. Maybe my eyebrow fell or something like that. But yeah, the last one that I want to talk about is, oh, sorry, there are two more actually that are in the 38 shit list. The next one is the Mercedes-Benz E220. The 0 to 60 on this thing is just horrendous. 8.4 0 to 60 for a standard tire car with 75 base handling is really sad. I know that you're medium, but it's just not good enough. 8.4 is really, really sad. And then last is the Porsche 928. Just this generation of Porsche, the 928s, even in the Super Airs, it carries on to the Super Airs. They're just really bad. Much like they're like the rear-wheel drive versions of the Volkswagens. The Volkswagens are mediocre all-rounders that are front-wheel drive, and the Porsche 928s are mediocre all-rounders that are rear-wheel drive. So this is kind of like the rear-wheel drive version of the Volkswagen Polos and the Golfs. So last but not least, let's end off with RQ39. Now 39, much like 36, there are a lot of bangers in here, but my top three has to go to the Ford Escort Rally Spec. It is the go-to off-roader for the entire rare rarity. The next one is indeed the Lotus Elise 1.6. This thing is just a keeper in anybody's garage. Awesome choice, obviously. Very lightweight, low 0 to 60, high handling. I mean, what more can you ask from a fantastic all-rounder like this? And last but not least, it's the king of the 1 mile and the king of the test bowl for the rare rank, and that is the Maserati Ghibli SS. Those are my top three, but I have honorable mentions going out to the Volvo V40 T5, the Fiat 124 Spider, which is the standard tire version, and last but not least, the BMW or the BMW Z3 2.2 liter. Honorable mentions to those guys. And now we're going to end off with the top three worst RQ39s in the game. The first one is the Land Rover Freelander. This thing is just really, really sad. I get that it's pretty light, but if it doesn't handle, there's no point. You need to have that lightweight and handling combination, like good handling combination. Unfortunately, the Freelander doesn't have that. If this was like 11.5 0 to 60 and 71 handling, that would actually make it a pretty good car, but unfortunately, it's the latter. Next up is the Peugeot 607. A part of me also forgets that this car exists in the game. And the last one is the Volkswagen Polo GTI. I would have never maxed it if it wasn't for, what was it? Oh, it was 2010 to 2014. It was for the Citroen GT, and I wanted to get the car, but I didn't get it anyway. But this helped me throughout the low end. But besides that, this is just a very mediocre rare nonetheless, and there are a lot of better alternatives to the Polo GTI. But anyway, that's going to be the list. Woo! Under 30 minutes. That's all I wanted to do. But let me know if you agree with my list or not. Those are, in my opinion, what I think are the top three best and the top three worst cars per RQ in the rare rarity. So once again, guys, let me know down in the comments below which rarity you want to see next. Thank you so much for all the support that you've given to the series, and I hope that this one goes just as well. Anyway, I hope you guys have a great day. I'm going to stay safe, wash your hands, and blossom out. Peace.